Okay, so we're recording and welcome everybody. It's Tuesday, May 5th, and I'm going to be talking about the nodes tonight and what they mean. I'm going to have to get my, let me just share my screen with you and get the chart on the screen. And I gotta come back and share my screen. I forgot to do that. Okay. Okay, so sharing my screen now. Okay. All right, so, oops. Let's get that out of here. I'm sorry. All right, so let me just get this. Okay. Let me hide my controls. Okay, so what we're gonna, looks like Sarah's coming on. Okay, let me get that chart back up again. Okay, so, okay. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is the nodal shift that's happening tomorrow. And you can see the North Node and the South Node. We've had them, the North Node tells us about the direction in a universal chart like this. It tells us about the direction that we're meant to go in, and that, you know, and it's moving from Cancer back into Gemini, because they stay in a sign for about a year and a half, the nodes. And so for the last year and a half, we've had the North Node Cancer and South Node in Capricorn. So let me let this person in. Okay, so every time okay. So I'm gonna go back to yesterday, to Monday, actually, wait, today. So actually this is showing, wait, today is Tuesday the 5th. We've just like 5 minutes ago moved into the North Node, moving into Gemini. Depends on where you live. The time of it, but here on the East Coast, it's already moved into Gemini. So, you know, we often call the North Node like the dragon's head, meaning where we're, you know, where we're looking at, where we're heading to. It's not comfortable going in that direction. And the South Node is in Sagittarius, and so that means what the past was, and what our past truth was, what our past beliefs are, what are the past things that we've traveled in the past. And Gemini is the exact opposite sign of Sagittarius, so it's a lot more about personal conversations, you know, one-on-one conversations, and it's about brainstorming, you know, thinking, just really a lot of brain activity and communication. So if I go back here, I just want to show you, if I go back one day, you can see Monday in the evening that the North Node was in Cancer and the South Node was in Capricorn. This is a huge shift for us, a huge shift. And it's going to be, you know, we've already got this level of confusion going on with the Venus in square to, let me see, Venus in square to Neptune, which is really getting us confused about our value and the things that we have valued. And it's just the information we're receiving, how confusing that is. So for the last year and a half, we've had the North Node Cancer and the South Node Capricorn. So nurturing, mothering, feeling at home and safe have been the direction, you know, that we've been heading in. And the South Node in Capricorn brought up authority. So South Node is the past. It's where the comfort level was. And these are, so authority, claiming our power and the structures of this world. So the nodes have to do with the direction, like I said before, that humanity is taking. And the nodes are actually a point in space that moves backwards through the zodiac. So, you know, as you saw, we went from Cancer back to Gemini, so we're going backwards. They always, you know, they go backwards. So the North Node was in Cancer, now it's in Gemini, and they actually move clockwise around the chart. So whereas the planets move counterclockwise around the zodiac. So the nodes represent this position in space where the orbit of the moon around the Earth and the Earth around the sun intersect. And so they're not any like physical body, but there are points in space. This is what's called the North Node and the South Node. So when the sun and the moon line up with these nodal points, that's when we get those, we get eclipses. So like, for instance, I could show you like the next eclipse we have is a very, it's hardly an eclipse, but it is an eclipse. But when you see, so it's not a total, but this is a strong eclipse right here, June 21st, because you can see the North Node right next to the eclipse. So I just wanted to point that out. So the eclipses bring an energy of direction, lining up of destiny, timelines, and you can see how the nodes represent, their placement represents the direction humanity is going. So the nodes in our birth chart speak to how we want to move forward, and in this lifetime, what might be holding us back from the past. So it's, you know, we look at it a little different in a birth chart, even though it is very similar, but it's our individual path. So we might want to get there. So for the last year and a half with the North Node in Cancer, it's been, can you receive nurturing? Can you come back into connection? Can you feel like you can be at home here on this planet? The South Node is about what's holding you back from the past. So that's what this is, the South Node. It's karmic energy. This has to do with how we've given away our power. And the nodes, since they move forward and backward, you know, we have what's called the true node and the mean node. The mean node is like taking the average of the forward and the backward motion, but because they go backward and forward and kind of wobble in a way, they pretty much keep moving. A lot of the times we don't feel the effects of the nodes of the moon until a little after. It's almost a delayed effect. So because we're on the cusp of this change right now, it's you know, and it's actually squaring Mars. I mean, it's trining Mars. You can see these aspects right here, and it's trining the moon. So we've got some really nice intellectual energy tonight, but from an emotional standpoint, I'd say with the moon in square to Pluto and Jupiter, you know, there's a feeling, there's a tension around things not being in balance, and the controls that are going on with, you know, this stuff that we're experiencing. So a lot of people are probably feeling this tonight. This is going to be, though, a huge new direction forward, a new message, how we're going to get where we're trying to go. Because Gemini is about the message. It's about the knowledge. It's about the information. So when the North Node, with the North Node moving into Gemini and the South Node into Sagittarius, we're going to stay in these signs until January 18th of 2022. So this is our journey ahead, and it's very important. There's very important messages that we're going to be getting around this next year or two that we're in. So this is energy of where this is the energy of where the sun's path and the moon's path intersect. And the sun is also, you know, how we think about ourselves. It's our identity, our place in the world in this lifetime, and the sun represents in our charts. So you see the sun right now in Taurus, but the sun in our charts, our birth charts, represents who we want to be, how we shine our light, express ourselves. The moon is our emotions and our representation to our emotional sensitive side, our water. And so this is very, very personal, the nodes. And when the nodes return, it's, so for instance, in a birth chart, when you have a nodal return, it's a reminder of why you came here, what your direction's meant to be. So So it just reminds you that about your path, like I said, and that it's time to get back on this direction. So the North Node in our charts is telling us, why aren't you going in the direction you want to go? And this node shift, this nodal shift that we're experiencing right now, is, you know, it's showing us the direction. It's giving us a big shift collectively for all of us. And it's saying we've got to find a new way forward. The North Node in Gemini speaks to communication and the mind. And Gemini and Sagittarius, that axis between Gemini and Sagittarius, are, you know, they're mutable signs, whereas Cancer and Capricorn were cardinals. So with that, there was more of this impulse to act, whereas with Gemini, it's more about adapting your mind, adapting your thoughts, adapting the way you think, adapting how you communicate. So it's actually a more where Sagittarius, the mind is always somewhere else. You know, we're meant to leave behind the Sagittarius energy, but there's a lot of people that are going to go through some really big shifts in this next year and a half about what they believe, what their spirituality is, what they believe in, what their religion is, you know, how they travel. We have to leave behind. A thing of the past is far travel. That's what Sagittarius is, far travel, especially to foreign countries. So the mutable signs are about adjusting, and that speaks to where we're at. The mutable signs happen at the change of seasons, and so this is where we're presently at. Right now, we're in a change of seasons. There are big changes on the planet. It's very disorienting, and this is the mutable energy. Mutable energy really challenges us. If it's in a challenging aspect, it challenges us to stay present, because it's just always moving. You know, it's like there's all these moving parts, and that's definitely happening right now. So this nodal shift is so powerful, and the reason we're feeling it so strong is because of the North Node in Gemini, and it's also because Venus is in Gemini. So here's Venus right here, Venus in Gemini, and it's about to go retrograde, which is what we talked about in depth last week. So Venus will stay in Gemini for 4 months because of the retrograde. It's a long time. So, and we're right at the beginning of the nodal shift. Just before this happens, you can see Mercury and the Sun come together in Taurus. So we have a full moon, and then we have a full moon in Scorpio, which is on the 7th, May 7th. And it's going to be, if you look at the night sky, you'll see it probably the fullest. And this is Eastern daytime, so it's not on the Pacific coast, it's on the Eastern coast. So it'll be, you'll have to adjust that for where you live. But so it's basically, this is AM. So the night before, I started to say, will be when you see this moon at the fullest, but it peaks the energy by May 7th. And so right at the beginning, it's right at the beginning of the nodal shift, just before Mercury and the Sun come together in Taurus. And so the nodal shift is telling us a little bit more about the North Node in Gemini and the South Node in Sagittarius. It's telling us what it's about. The full moon in Scorpio is across from the Sun. You can see the Sun and Moon are always opposite on a full moon. And so, and it's speaking to illuminating the shadows so that we can claim back our self-worth. So this is, you know, Scorpio is a very, very intense energy. And I don't know if you saw in the article I wrote yesterday, talking about the moon. The moon is our feelings, our emotions. On a full moon, it brings it to full light, what it is that we need to change. You know, Taurus is like, in a birth chart, rules, you know, your money, your resources, your values, and the opposite, Scorpio, is other people's money, other people's values. So there's a lot of energy here. You know, full moons can connect us together or pull us apart, because the energy is so intense. So immediately the message around the North Node in Gemini has to do with information, truth, new understanding, and perspectives, because Gemini is a mutable air sign. So it's about adjusting our minds, adjusting our thinking. So how does our thinking need to be adjusted? That's going to be a big question. It needs to have, we need to evaluate where we've been, what we've been hiding from, our own shadow, hiding from and the shadows on the earth, just pretending this is not here, choosing to be asleep to the shadows and the darkness of the full moon in Scorpio. But the full moon in Scorpio will bring it all to light and bring it all to truth. So, because Scorpio is like the best detective of the zodiac. It's able to identify what's deep down in the water and that you can't see on the surface. So basically, this is about bringing up, acceptance. It's about acceptance too. And as you can see, Thursday, as the day progresses, the moon is going to square Mars. And so that could quite possibly bring about some real rebellious type of experiences. And again, this is a universal chart. So this is energy affecting us all. So this full moon is bringing up such an intensity around our health, around our work. That's what this part of the chart is health, work, day-to-day work. And but the sun and Mercury in Taurus, where I'm pointing right here, represents what we need to survive, our feeling of comfort, and Taurus is ruled by Venus. And so there's this feeling of, can we have what we need? With Uranus also in Taurus, this is making everything really wild, because the sun and Mercury are both personal planets, and we're trying to get a sense of what's going on, but this conjunction comes on the heels of each of these, of the sun and Mercury having a conjunction with Uranus and Taurus. You can see they've just moved past. And Taurus is fixed Earth, so it's looking for stability, loves its stuff, loves its material in this world. What I need to be stable is what Taurus is about, but Uranus is anything but stable. So Uranus is this kind of instability. It's basically that planet is the king of instability, and it brings in the energetic disruption, and it creates chaos. It's to disrupt old patterns that are no longer serving us. And so the Mercury Sun conjunction, just on the heels of these planets being conjunct to Uranus, is about our minds and our identities coming together and examining our value system, examining our self-worth, examining our worthiness for new experiences for the new age. So our ability to receive the new age and this new stability and higher vibrational frequency has everything to do with facing the shadows. And this is a message from the nodal shift. So this is a picture that starts it all off. And then at the end of May 2020, Mercury comes into a conjunction with the North Node. So Mercury moves into Gemini and in May, and it's moving fast now because it's between retrogrades. So it'll be moving into Gemini and through it. And then on the 28th of May, Mercury will come into a conjunction with the North Node. So let me see if I can take that forward, show you the conjunction. See Mercury, this is May 22nd, the new moon. Mercury is very close. It's conjunct Venus and the North Node. So a lot of Gemini energy there, a lot of moving parts. And again, this basically draws a picture for us of what's let me see, the Mercury will come into, okay, so we got Mercury in conjunct with the North Node and Venus here. And this is the North Node of the moon. So this is going to be a lot of insight into what the the nodal shift is about. And that's very interesting because that's the day after we come off from the influence of our month-long Venus in Gemini in square to Neptune. We talked about that a lot last week. And so pretty much that's been the influence in square to Neptune in Pisces. So the Venus retrograde, which comes on, let me show you that, on the 12th. Venus goes retrograde. So Venus retrogrades on, actually here it's the 13th. That's when Venus goes retrograde. You can see the numbers have changed colors here, so that's the retrograde beginning. And it's going to, as I said before, it's going to stay in Gemini for 4 months. And it's marked dramatically by an exact square with Neptune. So we're at the beginning of this whole story that's also happening at the same time as this full moon in Scorpio. And I'm going to bring this chart right back to right here, right now. So you can see as right now, as we're speaking tonight, Mercury, the planet of communication, the sun, which, you know, rules over where we spend our time, where we put our light. So a lot of energy focused on materials, resources, money right now. So, and being that it's in this strong square to Neptune, and so it's going to be an exact square. It's going to get even stronger, the square between Venus and Neptune, and that's going to be around the 20th to the 22nd. So this is telling us a lot about the North Node in Gemini and preparing and supporting us for this shift. The thing is that Venus in square to Neptune is very, very confusing. We could have these feelings as like, I don't know what I want. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's real. A feeling of this world situation we're in right now, having this massive shift in our deep value systems in our world. And it's okay to, you know, go back to reality. Really, that's what we need to do. Or, you know, people are looking for us, you know, for things to return to exactly the way they were, but there's going to be a new normal. And we're asking, what is that? You know, what do I want? What am I doing? So we're basically in a great pause. And that's pretty much most of this year. We're in a great pause, which is forcing us to reevaluate what we really want. And it might not be what we thought we wanted. It's a feeling, a huge energy for advanced souls, like, you know, people that are light workers are drawn toward this work. It seems to be a part of what happens on this journey when your soul, when your more evolved self starts to develop. So your spiritual purpose comes in, your divine timeline, and then there's this, now my life and everything I've built, and the structures don't make any sense. So it's very confusing now that, but the North Node in Gemini is telling us that we are just on the cusp of beginning to adjust. This is the beauty of mutable energy. It's a lot easier to adjust and mutate. And it's a quick mind. Gemini is a quick mind, so there's a new perspective. So let's, you know, it's telling us, so let's look at things and let's look in different places for our answers. However, Gemini can also be a butterfly who's going from flower to flower and maybe not able to go deep into the truths, and yet we need this changeable, adjustable mind. So a big part of how we got here is through having very fixed ideas, and it's, you know, that's basically become like a disease. That was programmed into humanity to cling to fixed ideas, even though evidence might prove it otherwise. This is the energy of the dark side of the Piscean age. It's religious fanaticism, and that, you know, people saying that my God is the only God and that you can't believe in that God or whatever that is that you believe in. So this is the type of thinking which is totally distorted. And so Gemini, the North Node in Gemini is like, you know, we have to adjust our thinking, see a different perspective, wake up. But with Venus heading into its retrograde, it makes it so uncertain because it brings up so much uncertainty. What, you know, it tells us, you know, what we thought made us feel good now becomes uncomfortable. And when we go to make big changes in our life, and that's what Venus retrograde is, it's like this relationship, this job, something's not right. And what I valued before doesn't seem so valuable anymore, and I can't go on my way. So I've been going and ignoring it with Gemini. It could be ignoring the facts and truths, and they're coming to the surface now, and there's uncomfortable feeling of facing these delusions. That's the Venus in square to Neptune. And when Venus goes retrogrades, it's going to bring up confusion around relationships. Venus retrograde can bring old relationships back into our life so that we can find out what was wrong or fix what was wrong. And so we could feel, you know, it can make us kind of feel sick, but there's no way to escape from this. Once you see the truth, you have to make that adjustment in your life, but it takes going down, you know, a wrong road. Basically, going backwards with Venus retrograde can be, you know, that could, Venus retrograde can show us where things are wrong. And then, you know, we wait to turn around. This is very powerful energy. And so it's interesting. So the whole month of May, we're feeling this very intense Venus square Neptune before it turns retrograde. And then when Venus squares Neptune after it turns retrograde, there's total confusion about what's real, what's our real direction. What is this life even about anyway? Because a lot of people have been given this space and time and this pause because of this current world situation. And then we're questioning. We all want to just get back into our rhythm of work, and there's this just uncomfortable feeling of having to face what parts of the light of our lives aren't serving us on our soul's journey. So it's an intense energy. Now Neptune, here's Neptune right here, has an energy of the oneness principle. It's the higher octave of Pisces, which is spiritual revelation, connection to the one truth, spiritual truth. And Venus is our everyday love. And that's Venus right here. So you can see with this square, there's just this real disconnect. There's this real challenge of bringing these things together. Because if Venus is our everyday love, this is, you know, this could be actually, though, an opportunity for us to discover exactly what's going on. But it's going to take time because of the level of confusion that it's bringing up. I know there's a poem I used to have on my desk all the time about when you're in a fog, when you're confused, that's not a time to go forward. I think it's an old First Nations people poem, and the author was unknown. But so when you're confused, when you're in the fog, it's not the time to push forward, but to sit and wait until you can see clearly.
Hey, Andrea.
Yeah.
Just a question / comment about that. So everything you're saying is just, it's reminding me of in the state of New Hampshire right now, they're opening hair salons, which when I think of Venus, I think of beauty, hair salons, you know, like beautifying yourself, and it's going into retrograde, and all these hair salons are having all these like rules and restrictions around what you're allowed. And the reason why I know this is because my mom owns a hair salon in New Hampshire, and it was very upsetting to hear this information because I don't want my mom subjected to potentially getting sick. But anyway, so there's all these rules and regulations now around how you need to open up and what you need to have, and like your masks and gloves, and you need to provide them to people. And I just feel like the Venus retrograde thing is like a representation of like how this is starting again, but we're going backwards to go forward. Kind of, maybe not.
Well, we do have to go back over when you have a retrograde, a planet retrograde, it's about, in Gemini, it's about learning new ways. And what is it we missed the first time that we're, really confused or overwhelmed about? So yeah, Venus is about beauty. It's about materials. So yeah, there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot we don't know. There's definitely a lot we don't know.
There were just a lot of upset hairdressers in New Hampshire that were just really upset about the fact that that they're saying that, the state of New Hampshire is saying that they want them to reopen, and lots of confusion around it. And
And fear.
yes, lots of
Yeah.
fear. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna reopen in the middle of the month.
Next week.
Yeah, and they do have a lot of. My sister called. She goes, "Did you make your appointment yet?" And I said, "No." And she says, "Well, you have to wear a mask. They can only do one person at a time.
Right. Yeah.
They can't blow dry your hair. Blah 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 blah." And I'm like, you know what? I said, for $67 to have for her just to put the dye in my roots and come home. I said, I don't know. I think a lot of people, I get what you're saying I think what you're saying is about the vanity that goes along with the hair and the nails and
Yes. Yeah.
and all that. I think things are going to change. A girlfriend of mine who's had her nails done for years, they fell off during this time. I don't do my nails, but she said to me, I don't think I'm going to go back to a nail salon. So people are questioning about the vanity.
Yeah,
I think
it's a change of values, and it's not gonna be something that goes away easy. With Venus gonna go retrograde, with Venus squaring Neptune. I mean, that's also, Venus is money. And in Gemini, it's our minds and how we're thinking about, our money, how we're thinking about relationships. And the square to Neptune is that, we have this earthly, like, Gemini is a dual energy, so there's two sides to it, and it's always can understand both sides of things. But with this square going on, it's people are suffering. Neptune in poor aspect is suffering, confusion. So it's actually going to be until August till we get out of this. Because, like I said, Venus is going to be for 4 months. Venus is our creativity. It's how we express our love, how, our desires. And right now, being in Gemini, I think people's minds are really, just really being affected by this level of confusion and this, pause. We don't know where to go. We can't see.
also too, Andrea, if you're speaking about vanity, a lot of people have put on a ton of weight. People aren't feeling good about themselves right now either.
No, not because people can't go work out.
Yeah.
And Taurus, especially with us in this Taurus energy right now, Taurus loves its food, loves its, and people being home, there's that tendency to fill that void, to fill, enjoy the earthly things. But, again, this full moon's going to bring up a lot of shadow stuff for people, things that, but it'll bring whatever's the shadows are, whatever the fears are, whatever's hidden to the surface. So, anyway, so I hope I answered that, Sarah. So,
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
okay.
I was just, it's really interesting, about the, not to go back to the hairdressing thing, but like having that, like our mind on money. And I just thought that, I mean, I don't know if this plays a part in, I don't know, but I just thought it was, people are really focused on money right now because they're trying to open the economy again, and people are trying to reestablish a sense of income or some type of form of money. I was also told that Massachusetts is gonna, the restaurants, other businesses are gonna open up next week. So like in all that sense of confusion around it, like you're saying with the Venus square Neptune, people are focused on money but don't know how to really go about it. It just feels really unsafe.
Yeah, and there's all these I think that's part of this moon squaring Pluto and Jupiter right now, because we've talked about Pluto is control and Capricorn is government and Jupiter is rules, laws in Capricorn. So emotionally, we're feeling very out of balance right now, and with all the rules and the control, but anyway, so the Gemini energy is asking us to imagine something beyond that North Node in Gemini, what we can imagine. Venus is what we want, what we dream of, and Neptune is our big spiritual dreams, and the square is tension. And and perhaps has to do with our timeline. Is humanity going to go on the higher road, or are we going to stay on the lower road? Because the lower road is always seeking outside gratification. So and so it pretty much the people, I think the way people have thought is when I have this, I will feel like seeking outside gratification. So when I have this, I'll be happy. And our whole life, we've been programmed to seek the external conditions that will make us happy. Our whole life is built on conditions. Our whole societies are built on conditions. Conditional reality, conditional love. Are you going to continue on that road where you never ever satisfied, or are you going to open your mind to spiritual possibilities and the facts? It's not about that. We can never be fully satisfied with the physical gratification. This is a very powerful place that we are at. We're all feeling this, and the bigness of what's coming, it's an inevitable feeling. This and the bigness of what's coming, it's an inevitable feeling, but it's also a feeling of dread, because it's like our destiny is trying to land, and we've got to make that choice. But we're already, we already made a choice to come to Earth. So the confusion is, can we get into, the acceptance and the adapting and the of the possibilities that this energy brings, so it's kind of like we just have to go with the flow and let it happen, and instead of trying to force your life to be a mold that doesn't fit you. Because it's like what's happening right now is everybody's questioning their value and what their worth is. I mean, it's a lot to think about. If you've got food on your table, there's a lot of people that don't. And there's food pantries. Neptune gives selflessly. The energy of Neptune gives selflessly. But this is talking about world. It could talk about world famine. It could talk about world what do you call it? Confusion around how are we going to, change our money. How are we going to make money? So it's very uncomfortable, but it's an essential for us to get reoriented during the Venus retrograde in our value systems, and it's the key to getting more on that realization of our timeline. So after a whole month of influence of Venus square Neptune and confusion of May 2020, then Mercury comes into this conjunction with the North Node the day after. So the influence of Venus squaring Neptune goes from April 27th through May 27th, and then May 27th and 28th. This is why it's so important to pay attention to the planets and what they're doing, because they've got messages for us. They're living beings that are trying to support us on our life journey. So can we pay attention? And this is some of the energy of the South Node in Sagittarius, because Sagittarius has always got its mind 10 miles down the road. They're always thinking ahead. That's one of the things we're meant to leave behind, and that's one of the problems that we're all facing from the past is, taking flight. So, basically, can we pay attention to some of the energy of the South Node in Sagittarius? Because it's the South Node is that some of the energy that's holding us back. Sagittarius is a seeker, and it's trying to take off, take flight. It's the centaur hunting and the arrow and the direction, the spiritual direction and the quest, the journey. In a lot of people, you're going to see past traumas get triggered with this South Node in Sagittarius, because what it does is it brings the truth out so that we can North Node talk about it, see both sides of it, brainstorm about it. It can make us feel though like that we're being attacked, or that we're getting beat up, and that we're not validated, and even like relationships, it'll bring up truth with Venus retrograde around relationships you've been stuck in for lifetimes that have invalidated your path and your purpose. So when we try to direct our life toward the spiritual, there's a grief there. And this is where we get back to Uranus and Taurus, of radical shifts in our self-worth back toward our path and our spiritual truth, and understanding that because we have such a, we've come from such a path of seeking the truth. There's been a lot of forces working against us, around us for lifetimes. So Sagittarius South Node is bringing up a lot of stuff like you feel like you failed in your mission. It can make you feel like that. That maybe you were so direct, you had all this energy going toward this goal, this path, you knew what you were, this on this path, and you seem to know what you were doing. And then the feeling of, I failed, I don't deserve this, and could feel as if you're completely lost of what your direction is. So there's a lot of that going on right now, and people trying to adjust through that, but you yearn for it because it's why you existed. And yet you feel if somebody came and handed it to you on a silver platter, you'd probably turn it down because of the self-esteem gets brought up, and you don't think that you're good enough. There's a lot of that going on right now because of the confusion. So there's this question, can we receive the goodness beyond what we can imagine, as we've been grasping around for crumbs? So we could continue to try to make this work like before in a lower dimensional reality, but that's not what we're meant to do. The higher dimensional reality is what holds and supports us as a spiritual being. And yet the feelings of, do I deserve this? And is this a key thing? And a lot of what this Venus retrograde is about, because Venus is our self-worth. And, we all look in our, when I read charts, each of us, we look to our Venus in our chart to find love, to find happiness. So wherever it is really important for you to know and understand. So retrograde Venus is always going to bring up deep insecurities, deep programming around whether or not you deserve. And Gemini is trying to bring the ideas and the thinking of possibility. and opening our minds to possibilities, and that this can be better than we can imagine. So much of what, and with Gemini, it can kind of go back and forth. It never wants to commit to anything. Gemini is not by itself is not a committed type of energy. It's a free-spirited type of energy. So there's a lot of what's bothering, which is trying to get back to what we're doing here. And this is what I'm doing with, is what I'm doing in my life supportive? Because that energy is from the lower paradigm. So the Gemini energy is serving us to mix it up, open our minds, let some possibilities come in instead of trying to force it with our brain and our will. It's like we don't feel worthy of our higher path. And Venus retrograde will bring a massive adjustment in our self-worth, what we're doing, what makes sense, what makes us feel good, and what we need. And with the culmination of the energy of May 2020, and the Mercury conjunct the North Node may bring some clarity. So around the end of May, we most likely will get some clarity and about Venus in its square to Neptune. We can have a lot of exploring of these ideas of self-worth and what we've really wanted in spiritual revelations and our greater, wider truth, and it won't crystallize and make sense. So when Mercury is conjunct the North Node at the end of May and the Sun moves into Gemini, the third and final square of Venus to Neptune happens in July. So know that the confusion and redirection in our minds goes on through the end of July. But May is the big push into that energy, and you know that you've got to make some big changes. And Jupiter is powerful too, because this is, June, I meant to say June is powerful too, because this is going to be the first eclipse of the season. We can see that right here. Lunar eclipse. It's not a very strong eclipse at all because the node is so far away from the moon. There's, this is a lunar eclipse, and it's on the 5th of June in Sagittarius, but it's far from the node, just like I said. So it's not a total lunar eclipse. It's very important, though, because it's the first eclipse with a nodal shift. And the Sagittarius energy is going to come into play because the lunar eclipse is right at the middle of Sagittarius. So if you have any planets in your chart close to 15 degrees, 3 degrees either way, this is going to be a really important lunar eclipse for you. It's really going to highlight that Sagittarius energy, and it's going to be, with the nodes at the end of the signs. So this is just barely an eclipse. It's a powerful energy of what we're moving into, and it triggers the South Node energy of what's holding us back, basically, which is our failed dreams, what we've not been able to achieve, that we've had dreams. We all had a situation of not achieving things we've all wanted, and we've had things not work out, and then we feel stuck for a while. So immobilizing in that trauma and grief, and maybe that's where humanity is at right now. We've had this huge trauma energy collectively, globally, trauma, and it turns out it appears, it can appear kind of manipulative, because Gemini can be a mastermind that can be a Houdini that can get you out of situations, but also can be manipulative on, or being able to see different points of view means you can end up in total confusion. But Sagittarius is about bringing different points of view into focus. So this is powerful because we'll have the Venus retrograde going on, then the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, bringing forward our self-worth issues about our failed missions, a failed purpose from the past. So you want to think that think of where you think you've failed, and that might actually be where you've succeeded. And so it might be completely opposite of what you're thinking. So, so what's happening is your perspective could have been off. So on June 20th, that's the 21st, but June 20th, we see the sun. You see the sun right here next to the North Node, and they come together at 29 degrees of Gemini, and then there's a solar eclipse the next day at 0 degrees of Cancer. So we're like in a year of completing things around our, that have to do with our families, that have to do with our careers, and we're meant to leave those old structures behind. But we're going to have a little bit of like 0 degrees is trying to complete an energy of the last year and a half. So this is happening right on the 21st, on the summer solstice, marks a huge shift for humanity of, can you receive the nurturing to allow it to make, to be supportive of us in making these radical adjustments in our thinking of our self-worth and direction, and choosing, what our timeline is. So the sun, the solar eclipse, this is going to be the next day. There's the solar eclipse. On the solstice is about choosing that ideal timeline and making a choice. It's like being in the birth canal, and there's these layers and timelines coming together, and we're going through, it's a passageway. So maybe the solar eclipse is about going beyond the current timeline, but it's May, right where we're at right now, is intensely powerful with Venus squaring Neptune and Venus retrograde. And then June with the eclipses is anchoring us into these new energies. Then the 25th of June, Venus turns direct. So now we're going to be thinking about moving forward in these directions. Then we have a Mercury retrograde that occurs in Cancer. So this is a time of revisiting sensitive areas around nurturance. So that's not going to go away until, the Mercury retrograde is going to be a lot of revisiting areas to do with family, security, nurturance, and we're going to be, realizing some things we didn't realize before. And then later this year, we have Mars going retrograde in the sign of Aries. So 2020, we're in this energy, what we're experiencing, we're in this to the end of the year. And the 27th and the 28th of July is when Venus makes its final square to Neptune. It's the third and final square, and it tells us what this has been about. So the end of July will take us all the way back to April. It's going to be like a return of what we experienced in April. The third square is like, did we get the message? Are we going to make these changes in our life that we said we would? Venus retrograde is basically, are you going to make the changes? Are you going to let go of those past relationships and become a mastermind? Venus in August, after it's out of retrograde and past its shadow and has its conjunction with the North Node, this is where we're going to get some clarity. Venus conjunct the North Node is occurring in August. And let me go see if I can show that to you on the screen. Okay. See, it just moved past the North Node. That was probably closer to the beginning of August. And so Venus conjunct the North Node, we realize what we need to do to go forward. But it's a very uncomfortable rearranging. September is the, around the 3rd, the Sun and Mercury are going to square the nodes. So this is going to be a reorientation of our energy, and it's going to be a challenge to stay on our path. So, I kind of wanted to just kind of sum up some of that, the nodal questions. Everything that I know about Gemini is that we're meant to now be intelligent about the directions we go. It's not so much a research sign, Gemini, but it's a sign that just wants knowledge, wants information, wants to grow its knowledge. And Gemini's the best, they say they're the best networkers, the best communicators. And, you know, they're just constantly in need of knowledge and information, because that's kind of like the food. So we're meant to heal the past around our beliefs. And, you know, there's going to, like I said, there could be a lot of past traumas that come up too, that we need to understand and find some sense of truth around. So does anybody have any questions about any of this? I guess not. So you know, I can go over the next couple days until next Tuesday and just talk about, you know, of course, we start feeling the influences of that full moon like I talked about tomorrow night. You can see it right here in Scorpio. And Scorpio is intense. It's very, very intense, but it's also like very mysterious. So, you know, we're looking at mysteries that we don't understand. And, you know, Scorpio is also the death sign. It's also the sign that indicates that there's, you know, a sort of alchemical process that's coming to a peak here. And, you know, people being extremely emotional, sensitive around their resources, and you know, even, you know, Scorpio can be like the stock market, because that's where we invest money, insurance company, mortgages. There's a lot of opposition going on this full moon, and that's what full moons are about. They raise our awareness. But and then we see a pretty strong square here between Mars and the Sun and Mercury. So that's what I was talking about before. And we go to the 7th, and we, well, that's a fixed cross squared off right here. That means that it's very hard, very difficult to accept what's going on. But that's exactly what we have to do, is figure out how we can accept. And communicating about future directions is definitely one of the ways. And then on Friday, we have the moon in Sagittarius. So again, Sagittarius is the truth teller. It's a very direct energy. It's a fire energy. So, you know, over the course of the next 2 days, the weekend, with the moon in Sagittarius, it's going to be conjunct the South Node. So it's going to bring up some of our past traumas, some of our past misunderstandings, some of our past beliefs. And then Saturday is when the moon's, see, that's when it joins up with the South Node. And earlier in the day, it's going to square Neptune. So that's going to be a very, you know, we've got this mutable T-square that's formed on Saturday. So that's a day that's very confusing in many, many ways. Very, you know, it's probably feeling like, okay, we need to go, but I'm scared of what the, you know, the depth or the long-term effects of this is going to be. And the next day, Sunday, for I think that's Mother's Day, we have the moon in Capricorn. So it's going to be, and it's going to trine Uranus. So that could be some, you know, epiphanies around our careers, around the work that we're doing, about our organization. And, you know, moon in Capricorn is always like, okay, so how can we get to where we want to go? How can we climb that ladder? And, but this is indicating that we're starting to get that we've got to change things. And Monday, the moon is going to join up with Pluto and Jupiter. So that's going to be a day that's very focused on government, on structures, on businesses, and people's careers. And the sun and the moon are actually in trine right here. So that's actually probably things are, people are wanting to get back to earning money. And there's just, what do we have going on here? We have Mercury in square to Mars. So that would be, Mercury is communicating, talking, thinking. Mars is movement, activity, can be anger, and it's in a square right here. So, there's quite possibly could be some acts of rebellion there and frustration. And this is Monday. And Tuesday, we have the moon in Aquarius. So, and it's going to trine Mercury. So, it's starting to be that people are being able to think a little bit clearer, just a little bit of a glimpse of that. But there's still a lot of stress in this chart, a lot of stress. So, does anybody have any questions?
Well, one thing that what confuses me, I don't know if it's really a question, or I guess it could be a question. One thing that confuses me is how the government is pressuring states to reopen, but yet at the same time, you've got officials saying that the death toll is still rising.
Mm-hmm.
But yet at the same time, they're saying we need to reopen now, but yet they're saying, well, but the death toll is still rising, more people are still getting it. So I don't know, that's just really confusing to me. Like, why? You get what I'm saying?
I think that this is Lauren, is a lot of the Venus square Neptune, and Venus is going to go retrograde. And I think that while the retrograde is happening, we're going to really realize some real problems that we need to fix.
Mm.
That's just probably, when you see Venus square Neptune in a chart, that person typically in relationships has a very difficult time. They don't understand how to have a relationship. They don't understand. It can also be a very deceptive and confused person around relationships. So, there is a lot of deception going on, and there's a lot of things that I don't think people even know. I don't think people even have the knowledge of.
Mm-hmm. Makes
So,
sense. Venus square Neptune and the Gemini and the Pisces, it's wishy-washy, it's unstable, it's speaking out of both sides of the mouth, Just
it is. It really is. Yeah, so.
I feel that it's very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're getting mixed messages. You put
Yeah.
on one channel, on one station, they say, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as they're making it out to be. Then you put on another station and they're saying, it's really bad. It's very catchy. So I don't know. All I can tell you is this. In Melrose, I have one son that put together a 200-bed emergency at Melrose High. They didn't use it. My other son down at the barracks down the Cape, they also built a 200-bed emergency for the COVID. They haven't used it. I don't know. My sister works at Tufts. They have cases, but they're seeing a lot more people go home.
Mm-hmm.
But then I hear of today 2 deaths of young people that didn't have any underlying conditions. So it's really confusing.
Yeah, it is. I heard the similar thing with my hairdresser. She said a similar thing. She said that, she knows a couple people who work in the health industry, and apparently they said that, they've had a lot of people come in with some kind of symptoms, but they might not even be like COVID-19. They're just diagnosing them immediately as having it, and then they just send them home. But yet they're not having like those exact symptoms. So it's like they haven't really seen it. So it's very confusing. All kinds of mixed messages, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I know I can feel it. I know everybody can feel this.
Mhm.
If you're really sensitive, it really, it
Well,
takes a
when
lot
this first happened, my sister at Tufts was nervous, and and they would have meetings with the doctors, and the doctor would say to them, "Do you know anybody that has it? Do you know anybody?" And most of them would say no. This was at the beginning.
Mhm.
Now, I mean, I personally know 4 people that have it. They haven't died. One of them is in the hospital on a respirator, but it is starting. Everybody knows somebody now.
I don't know
I don't
anybody.
either.
Except, I don't know
I
anybody.
don't either.
I wish I could say the
Well,
same.
you know what? You're in California and Florida, right?
Mhm.
You guys have pretty low numbers out there, I think.
I thought
Yeah.
Florida was high.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
California was as well.
No, California. As a matter of fact, everybody's, I think, pretty surprised with Florida and California. New England seems to have been hit pretty hard.
Mm.
Hmm.
Huh.
What?
Is there anything that shows on here that there could be like a say like the United States or the states decide like Massachusetts, I don't know, I could be wrong about this, but they're gonna start opening businesses next week, and I'm just really concerned that okay, maybe there aren't a lot of cases right now. Maybe something with like the Saturn retrograde or this Venus retrograde at the same time will insinuate like some type of spike with the virus because everyone's gonna try to like go back out.
Yeah, I feel that way. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, retrogrades, just because we have planets going retrograde, it's probably going to slow it down. It's going to, because the energy is not moving forward anymore, but it's still internal. It's still that is still something I would say that's internal. And we do have Saturn retrograde already. Saturn rules, restriction, and so it's hard to say. It's hard to answer that. I could put the it's not gone away. It's not gone away by any means. And I was listening to a couple different astrologers that I like, and they were saying that if you think this is gone, do not, don't, it's not gone. We need to be very careful because by the fall, when all of these planets wake up, it's let me see, it's going to probably have a resurgence. So here's
talk about the second wave in the fall.
Yep. So you're asking me if the states, I'm not sure I'm clear on your question.
That's the Venus square Neptune. I'm just kidding. I'm not even sure if I'm clear on my question, to be honest with you. I just it's such a big push to get people out and businesses open, and I'm just concerned. Venus square Neptune. I'm just very afraid that if that happens, then a lot more people are going to get sick, and I guess that's just really my concern. And I guess maybe my question is, do you see anything in the chart that can insinuate resurgence, like you were saying, like you said in the fall? But if there's anything else, maybe.
Well, I'm looking at Venus right here. Venus is actually setting off by transit in the U.S. birth chart is setting off a square to Neptune. Mars and Neptune are square by birth. So that means that, for the birth of our country. And I think that there's a lot of deception going on. And because that's, Mars and square to Neptune, there's a long conversation we can have about that, but that's being triggered by this Venus retrograde. So a question of our relationship to each other, and that could be the different states, and our work. I don't think that anything is clear right now. I don't think anything is clear.
Well, I have a question. You had mentioned the end of July.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be in retrograde. No, yeah, retrograde the end of July. And you said it's going to bring us back to April. Does that mean maybe that's the beginning of the fall uprise in the numbers or something? Or what did you mean by that?
That was about the Venus square Neptune. And
Okay.
yeah, so the end of July, like if I go, well, there's a beginning right there. So let's see what Venus is doing. Venus is right next to the North Node. And so we're already moved out of that Venus. We're past all the Venus energy right now. We're past the Venus retrograde. We're out of the shadow. So let me see back at my notes I think I was talking about that what we experience in April, this is gonna, you know what, quite honestly, that could be the time where, okay, we've gone through this energy 3 times. We've been on this path 3 times with Venus. So by this time we are moving ahead. We have new direction that we're going. We have new knowledge, but we still have, I think it's basically we're revisiting some of the stuff we experienced back in April, but we have new knowledge with it now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, you know, then we're gonna, yeah. So I don't know the answer to some of these questions because I'm feeling very confused with all this myself, but I do know that, you know, we have a lot of unsupported information out there.
Because it's all new. It's all
Wow.
new. They don't know a lot.
But I also get this real, I mean, the government doesn't want to, you know, I think that they just they want to get people back to work because the economy is crashing.
Andrea, this is
Yeah.
Sandy. I just wanted to chime in a little bit. As I listen to everybody, my experience has been a little bit different than most people, I think, through this whole situation. You know, I've been working from home. It's busy. It's like business as usual. If anything, I'm feeling more of a frustration about how there's so many mixed messages out there where I seem to be on a different side of this. You know, I work in Boston. I am nervous about going back into the office and riding on the public transportation, but it's very confusing how there's so many different perceptions of this experience.
Yeah, that's a lot of the Venus Neptune. And you have your individual path, and so you probably don't have the same, like the universal chart. You know, everybody has a little different effect because what you personally have going on is different than what's globally going on. So, yeah, that I don't know how to explain much deeper. You know, it's deeply confusing. Neptune is deep, very, very deep, and with Neptune in Venus and square to Neptune right now, that's what we call an applying square, and that means that this is energy that's applying toward us right now, and it's extremely very difficult to know what we believe. And about Virgo is health. And this part of the chart is truth. It's the laws. So, I mean, this is across the board. And this is also our relationship with other countries and our communication with other countries, that there's a lot of deception there also.
Yeah, I'm extremely grateful for that I'm still working and getting a paycheck. And it seems like such a drastic shift. Some people, like I said, don't have food on the table. It just seems so unfair to me. That I guess it's making me very sad, and we don't know how to fix it. I feel helpless.
Yeah, that's what we're all feeling, the same thing. is that we don't know, you know, if people that are applying for unemployment, and they're getting mixed messages on, you know, that are wrong messages, that they're not qualified. What are they supposed to do, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really, yeah.
It's, yeah, I don't know, but I do think that the main thing that we need to keep doing is with that North Node in Gemini is to keep educating ourselves to the best of our ability, communicating, talking, staying in touch. And you know what? The best way that we can, Gemini is about, it's a free-spirited energy and it wants to socialize, you know, but you got to be careful about how that is. Very, very careful. It's a very confusing time for sure. So, does anybody else have any comments or?
When do you think things are going to start being clearer?
Yeah.
Not so confusing next year?
Well, the fall is definitely going to bring a level of that when Venus stops squaring Neptune for the third time once it gets past it. So the fall is going to bring some level of that, but I don't think it's going to be much this year. It's going to be most of this year that we're going to be experiencing a lot of this. But like what I've just talked about is peak times, important dates, and these are universally.
It's going to be a confusing year.
Yeah, it is. Yep, it is going to be a confusing year, and you know, I know that, you know, the way that, you know, with Pluto, do you see how Pluto here in the U.S. chart is right on top of? It's not even actually reached it. So we've got a couple years of restructuring of business, of government going on. That's a very slow moving planet. So, yeah, it's going to be, especially 2020, because 2020 is like rock bottom.
Is it a Pluto return?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep, it's a Pluto return.
So that means that, I mean, like, okay, does that mean that the entire structure of the United States could be turned upside down?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, the one
It's
world order.
I don't know what that is, but but the Pluto on top of it, a Pluto return means that the ending of a period and the death of a period, the death of our money, the changes, the transformation in our money systems, because that's where this is in this part of the chart is our money and the structures, our government structures. It's really the end of a time of an age. We're coming to the end of an age.
But it could be a good thing, right? I mean, like all these really outdated ideas around our value, the value, like how we value things in the United States. I mean, it could turn out to be a good thing, right? Like it's kind of like a cleansing.
Well, that's Pluto. Pluto is death. Pluto is transformation. Pluto is control. And so, you know, it's the death of the old order, the death of the way things were, and the death of our financial, what was. So, I mean, Pluto's not a friendly planet. By no means. It brings us, I mean, when we look at it from hindsight, we can say, hey, I learned a lot from that. But going through it is like it's just destruction. That's what Pluto is about, is destruction. So it could be that, you know, we have to find an end to the way that things have been so that we can start new.
Well, if you look at it, I mean, Jupiter is also on top of Pluto in Capricorn, and I mean, Jupiter is prosperity. It's, you know, it can be good luck. So it might not be all bad. I would have to say, seeing that, right?
Well, Jupiter in Capricorn does not like to be in Capricorn. First of all,
Oh.
Jupiter is prosperity, but Capricorn says restrict. You got to work hard for every single thing that you get.
Okay.
So it limits it.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, but I mean, it normally does bring prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Normally it's good luck. Normally it's expansion, but it's expansion of, I'd say, Capricorn control.
Yeah.
You know, because Capricorn is a very controlling sign. It wants all the cardinal signs like Aries, Cancer, Libra, Aries. They're all very, you know, those are the signs that say, I can fix that for you. I can control that. I have the power to do that. But it's interesting how, you know, those are very active energies, and they want to act in different ways. But Pluto says, you know, Pluto's like takes away our control. We feel like we have control over nothing with Pluto.
Andrea,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of worries me about this, and I don't want to bring doom and gloom to this, but July 4th was our Independence Day, right? That's the birth of the U.S. birth chart, and it was basically a war.
It was. Mm-hmm. That's, you see Mars squaring Neptune, that's war.
We were at war, yeah. We were at war when the Declaration was signed. It was already in full hurdle.
So,
Yep. We you know, I don't know. I have a concern, and I don't want to put gloom and doom out there either, but I think hopefully there's going to be, you know, that the United States can figure out how to get us back, not get us back, but to move forward, put some new, you know, new ideas, new policies, that kind of thing into place, because we certainly can't go back to the way we were.
Yeah.
Pluto, you know, Pluto moving over Pluto it has to end. You know, it has to end. There's no other way to look at that. It has to end so that we can be rebirthed. And that's probably the good part about it, but it has to end so that we can have rebirth, that we can have a whole new path, that we can access what we've never accessed before.
Mm-hmm.
So
I found it interesting today. I heard Neiman Marcus and J. Crew went bankrupt. They're closing all their stores, somebody was saying. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because Neiman Marcus is a status store, and J. Crew tries to bring in all the young kids and pay high money for their clothes. And I thought, that's interesting that those two stores might be, I think, are closing, they announced.
yeah.
Well, Neiman Marcus has always been, because I've been in retail for years, it was always called needless markup.
It's always
It's
Called
called
needless
what?
markup.
Oh,
yeah,
needless.
yes. Well, I just find it interesting that it's those two stores, and I was like, oh well. You know. And then on Sunday we went out for a ride, and there was no cars in the parking lots, and I said to my husband, oh my God, it reminds me of when I was a kid. On Sundays none of the stores were open. But do you remember, you know, all the stores would close, I think 5 or 6 o'clock. Sundays closed.
I remember, Lee.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
I said, well, maybe we're going to come back to something like that.
Well, Pluto,
Well, I think that the whole process of business and how we've been doing business has been challenged by this, and it will change. And, you know, quite frankly, as much as Andrea, I appreciate you, enlightening us with all this, because it does help, at least when you know where you're going, even if it's tough times, but there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. There's always good stuff that can come out of this. And I think that it is going to be restructured. It's not working. It hasn't been working for a long time. There's been a division between, the rich and the poor and all that stuff. And we can go down that road forever. But the fact is that changing of those things in the right place is going to end up being better. Now, of course, there's always, two sides of the coin, but I think we have an opportunity to rethink and come up with creative ideas on how we're going to move into the future and how we're going to show up in the world under, the new norm, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Well, Pluto, one of the things we've talked about with Pluto and Capricorn is the death of the greed. The death of, the change, a change of how, death of the, my status is this, And one of the things I just saw here is that we were born with Pluto opposite Mercury. And so that's, that's a pretty powerful connection with our banks, our lending institutions, with other countries and their money systems. But we're very opposite. We have done things very, very opposite, but we've also connected with a lot of other countries that needed help, needed nurturance, and that's what the United States has done. So, ending some of those things also, and I think that's what I heard Trump doing about, setting up the boundaries and saying, we can't do things, we can't let anybody, we can't.
Right. We got to take care of our own first, then we can help other people.
Yeah.
That goes from yourself to your home, to your neighborhood, to your state, to your country. I mean, it's like that across the board. You got to help yourself first. So I agree with that. I know Japan, in their stimulus package, they put billions of dollars into having their companies come back to Japan from China. They're actually going to pay their people to come back and open their businesses back up in Japan. So,
yeah. Yeah, well, you know what, Pluto, we're going to have to change a lot about how we relate to other countries, is for sure, with Pluto coming back on top of this. So we're going to have to change, and our awareness will definitely, that's a good thing, our awareness raising. And, Mercury rules our relationships here, relationships for business, in the country, the relationships with other countries, but it also rules the 9th house. So, we are a country that has, this part of the chart is foreign land. So, Pluto, we've been very powerful in connecting with other countries and talking with other countries, and uniting, coming together, or setting up, a really strong stance in that we don't believe the same as you. Those are all things that, are coming into the light with this.
China is a big question here because of, on multiple levels. Have you ever done a chart on China?
I have no idea.
I don't, how would you do it? But it'd be interesting because we're looking at the United States and we're seeing this, and this pattern seems to be playing itself out. It would be kind of interesting to figure out how to do a chart on China and see how that's playing out along with what's happening with us.
Yeah, I don't know about their birth information. I don't know if I could find it, but that would be pretty interesting to do.
Well,
Yeah,
there's got to be a Chinese astrologer out there that's done it, maybe, or something. But it'd be interesting to see how it.
Out and ask them, Greg.
All right, yeah.
I mean, China's really old.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Chinese astrology is very different than in the U.S., I mean, to the Western astrology. I don't know much about it, but yeah, I don't know. But I do think that we do have Neptune opposite Neptune here. We're going to have a couple years of getting clarity on what our laws are, what our beliefs are, our health and our well-being. That's Virgo. So, you know, typically when you see Neptune opposite Neptune, just like these are powerful, powerful transits. We'll never be the same again after these transits. It's like awareness that we've never had before.
So we're going downhill for a long time.
Well, no, I mean,
Well, we're in transition for a long time.
we are in transition
That's
for a
another
long
way
time.
of putting it.
We are in transition for a long time, and there are going to be things that are going to be unclear for a long time. You know.
You know, and I think that, you know, Andrea, when you did my chart and you talked about my personal stuff in this time, it was like, you know, one of the things she said is, look, you're going to have to accept things that you can't change. And that's like impossible for me, but I'm learning. You're going to have to accept things that you can't change, and you're going to have to learn how to be okay with it. And, you know, I mean, I struggled with that and fought with that because, you know, I'm used to having more control and all that. And I'm not a control freak, but it definitely, you know, challenged me. But as we've been going through this, one of the things that's been the most comforting thing for me is to just stay grounded sometimes, you know, day by day, hour by hour. You know, I've started meditating a lot more, just at, you know, even small amounts, just to take myself and just ground it and pull it down to the, you know, down to, you know, kind of a copacetic place rather than getting all, you know, one of the things I think that's the biggest challenge, and I appreciate, you know, Andrea, what you're sharing, because as much as it sounds like fear, for me, it helps me stay out of fear because I know what's happening, or I have an inclination and I know that it doesn't make it easier, but, and she told me that wasn't going to be the way. It was just going to be, you're going to have to learn how to settle with it and move forward, because the light at the end of the tunnel is there. And there is good stuff coming out of this, but there's just going to be a road. So it's, you know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unless
Yeah, that's true. I find some things I can kind of just go with the flow, and other things really, it's hard. So I know what you mean.
Yeah, and so now I'm having to learn to go with the flow of things that I wasn't used to going with the flow before.
Yeah.
You know, that's my evolution. That's my personal involvement in understanding how to move through things with, you know, a more balanced, you know, more balanced and grounded approach. And as a Libra, you know, the balance thing is bouncy.
What? It's bouncy.
I feel like most of my life has been bouncy between, you know, trying to keep the scale somewhat on the same level.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, Libra, there's always a storm before the calm.
Yep.
That's what they say. And that's because of the time of the year that Libra is, that, you know, things are out of balance. So we seem to cross that bridge of finding balance. You know, good part is Libra is always seeking peace. So
So Andrea, so it might be good then the North Node is in Gemini, because at least during this transition we'll be open to speaking and talking and learning and discussing with each other.
That's where the benefits are going to come. That's the direction we're meant to go in. That's what is going to bring us the most joy, is sharing knowledge. That's why I wrote what I wrote. I mean, I think a lot more people are going to be studying astrology because it gives us a map to understand. Not that we always, you know, at least it's nice to know when these things begin and when they end. You know, there's a lot of studying that. There's, you know, and we are having to change some very, very, very powerful old ways. And so what they get changed into, this country will be very different. And then I mean, this year, next year, the following year, it's big. It's going to be very different.
It's almost like way bigger than the actual virus.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you think about these bees?
Goodness, scary.
Yeah. I read
Yes.
today they're trying to get rid of them. We've actually had them since December.
What?
And we've actually had them in Washington state, which I found very interesting that they were in Washington state, and the virus kind of started out in Washington state. Anyway, they're trying to get rid of them because they're actually killing the honeybees.
You know, they're very, very violent.
Aggressive.
Yeah, did you
get
see
here?
them? They're ugly. Oh my God.
And they're
Scary.
big. Well, that's the Uranus and Taurus, crazy things happening on Earth. It's actually Uranus and Taurus we're probably going to have a lot of earthquakes with that, because that's what Uranus does, is it shakes things up.
Oh, yay.
Well, that's
I agree with that one. The
Well,
earth
hey,
is angry.
I'm an earthquake. You know, I mean, I've grown up with earthquakes, and you know, they don't bother me as much as they do people in other places. But they're, you know, I've been through a couple of pretty big ones. Well, the Northridge one and the San Francisco one in '80s. So it's yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Hey,
Hopefully
you're
they're not
welcome.
in California.
He is. He's in California. Okay, well, everyone, thank you for coming on tonight. And it was great to have everybody here. I appreciate it. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Take
Have a
care,
good night.
everybody. Yeah, you too. Okay, let me see here.